Yeah, I feel like it can be true in specific situations, and part of the problem with social media is that you have people that maybe don't work in the same population as you, and you put an article about shoulder pain, and all of a sudden they're saying this is not necessarily accurate, and they're looking at the lens of all the people they see. But I mean, in my population, I am working with people that are doing a lot of kipping, and they're getting a lot of hyperflexion of the shoulder, sometimes internal rotation, and they're just like basically in a Nears position over and over and over again. And if you think about a primary mechanism of injury, yeah, they're probably getting some tensile loading through the cup, but they're also getting a lot of compression. And then when you have them come in here, say it hurts when I go overhead, hurts on the back between the kips, hurts at end range of flexion, I put them in a flexion, it hurts. So you put them in that compressive position, it reproduces their same symptoms. It fits with subjectively what they're telling you. I do think that that's an accurate diagnosis for that person that's right in front of you, right? So for that individual, I would say shoulder impingement is probably the primary cause, you know, so that makes sense to me.
Yeah, the issue is that shoulder impingement is used for everything, and it's a junk term, and it's used for too much, and it is not always accurate when you say that. So I think it's just like everything else, like we've, you know, patellofemoral pain, almost everything that we've kind of labeled here. It's almost like when the surgeons don't have something to surgically fix, let's just give it a junk term and say what it is, right? But I think anytime you have an extreme position saying like, well, that's not a real thing, or that's always a thing, I think that's when we run into trouble. There's certainly times we get in there. The problem though, and I think the reason why this episode's important here, is what you don't want as a new grad or a late level student, something like that, actually seeing these social media posts and saying, well, impingement doesn't exist, because then they're gonna do some pretty stupid things, right? They're gonna say like, they're gonna do the exact opposite because they're extremists, they're trying to like be like, no, keep going, man. I want you to, you know, don't be fearful of that movement pattern, keep jamming it up. But what if you have a tight capsule? What if you have a mobility restriction? You keep just jamming it over and over again, and that's how they got into that mess. How on earth is that the right treatment plan, right? That doesn't make any sense, right? So you don't want to be on the other side and say that it doesn't exist and it's debunked and that sort of thing. There's a component of biomechanics in everything, right? But there's a component of everything and everything. And I think that's the biggest takeaway of all this stuff. You have to kind of put that into play. So is biomechanics the only answer? And is shoulder impingement very biomechanical? Yeah, absolutely. But it's not the only answer, right? So I think that's the problem when we get into somebody being on one side of either end of a spectrum. It's just, it doesn't apply to everybody, right? So any other closing thoughts on that? I mean, you know, yeah, I mean, don't be afraid. I mean, don't be the person that says, "Oh, shoulder impingement doesn't exist." And then, I mean, trust me, I've seen this. We've seen students coming in kind of with this like personality. Not Dr. Trey, he's the man, but like with this personality. It's almost like you're like, I don't know. You're like, I don't know. Like, the patient comes in, it's like, no, the doctor said I had shoulder impingement. You're like, no, that doesn't exist.
Like, wait,
and then they're like, that doesn't exist. It's fear mongering.
Gotcha.
Right? And the patient's like, whoa, and you make the patient feel bad, and then they're like, I don't know, the doctor told me that. I trust the doctor. I like the doctor. I don't know. I mean, like we just get into this situation and you want to get into that. I think the thing to realize here is that biomechanical stuff in and of itself probably isn't the only answer. And I think that's the big thing to come with it. Just realize it's a junk term, embrace it, and teach them that they can move, and teach them that it's okay that we do always impinge. But don't be the knucklehead that just pretends it doesn't exist and just keeps jamming it. I think that would be my overall answer.
It's a neurobiomechanical.
Transductive neurobiomechanical.
Boom.
Covers everything.
Nice. I like it. So great question. I think, I think again, that's, I feel like we've been dealing with a lot of, trying to help people with our experience, try to figure out what's real and what's not real online, because a lot of that is really, it's really, right? It's like the Matrix. A lot of that is really relevant nowadays to these younger people, and I get it. They feel overwhelmed, right? Like, I get it. So great question. If you have anything like that, you want us to debunk more debunking of debunks, let us know. Head to MikeReinold.com, click on that podcast link, and you can debunk any debunking of debunks that we could debunk at any time.
I don't know why.
At any time. Thank you. See you on the next episode.